Hello everyone, I welcome you all to our technical webinar on VDI, the only vaccine to enable remote working variants for organizations. My name is Rajiv Khanna and I'm from GAVS Technologies. I oversee products within GAVS as well as customer success within GAVS. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today, and we have a great session planned for you. Our speakers for today is Muralidharan Vijay Kumar, Dr. Haider Ghazanfar, and Greg Datrick. Muralidharan comes with more than 15 years of experience in product development and product management. He is the product manager at GAVS Technologies for zDesk, their VDA offering. Dr. Haider Ghazanfar is a chief resident for Department of Medicine at Bronx Care Health System, a not-for-profit healthcare hospital in the New York City area. And Dr. Haider, as a consumer of VDI services, would be sharing his experiences of how technology, and in particular VDI, has impacted his life as a physician in taking care of people. And more importantly, we all should thank Dr. Haider for fighting us against this pandemic, as he was at the epicenter of the pandemic fighting for it. Thank you so much, Dr. Haider. And finally, we have Greg Datrick. Greg is a vice president of customer success at Hive.io, a VDI software company, where his focus is on global solutions engineering, where he is responsible for implementation of VDI and management of VDI for many of the customers. And gentlemen, I thank you all for taking the time today, and I'm looking forward to this session. All right, so before we actually start this session, the webinar on VDI and how it's helping in this pandemic and in the remote working scenario, I would really want us all to take a quick video clip, and then we can be right back. Can we get on the video clip, please? Great, welcome back. So Murali, from the video, what I was able to infer is that we had two contrasting experiences. In this case, I was seeing a healthcare provider. In the first part of the video, are end users, are people who are trying to use technology were not getting the best experience, and they were impacted by technology in what they were trying to do. And then on the second part, I was able to see a much more comfortable work environment and users. And more importantly, I was also able to see some positive business outcomes. For example, a provider having a very good discussion with the patient, and they were all in smiles. So from your point of view, what is the message that you wish to convey through this video? Can you provide some insights or thought process to this video, Murali?
Sure, Rajiv. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining this webinar. So, Rajiv, I think you already almost got it, what the video is conveyed. But the intent behind showing this video is to drive home the fact that the technology plays a significant role in the business outcome or experience. As you can see in this video, we had showcased how business outcome can be influenced by the underlying technology. In this case, it's a VDA. The first part of the video depicts an organization using a traditionally managed end-user computing environment. This is an organization that has adopted VDA. As you can see here, the business outcome achieved by these two organizations are entirely different. So that's the message we want to convey from this video, Rajiv. So it's all about technology.
Got it. Got it. That's good to know, Murli. And it's also great that we have heard topics where people say technology enables business. And I think there is this, I was able to see some examples where we can really impact or improve. So with that said, I would like to hear from Dr. Haider Hazanfar. Dr. Haider, again, thank you so much for your time today. And I know you've taken the time today from seeing patients to give some of the experience that you had with technology. But before we get into the details, I'd like to just get your personal opinion on you being a physician by profession, where your core is to treat patients and take care of them. What has technology done to you, or how it has impacted you, and how have you embraced technology? And is technology really helping a doctor like you? Could you just share some thoughts and uh, ideas about how is technology enabling your work and impacting you in your day-to-day life, Dr. Haider?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Rajiv, for this opportunity. I believe like in the last few decades, we have made significant advancements in the field of medicine. Now we have more investigation, treatment options as before, which has increased the longevity of the patients. And now we are dealing with more complex chronic conditions. The COVID pandemic has only further increased the magnitude of the problem we are facing right now. I believe that technology gives the healthcare provider increased information which was not possible with paper charts. Technology has significantly improved quality of care for the patients, patient outcomes, safety through improved interactions among primary care provider, and data is easily available for all the providers in the system. So it's definitely revolutionized how medicine works. Health IT has opened up more avenues for exploration, researches, which allow experts in the healthcare field to make more driven and effective solutions for the patient. I remember the first time they brought up the idea of the VDI in our health system. I was at crossroad whether it's going to be helpful for me or whether it's going to create more problems. So I was very shaky about the idea initially, but luckily for me, it turned out to be a blessing. My patient interaction has improved. I get to spend more time with my patients. So it definitely has revolutionized my healthcare practice.
Thank you, Dr. Haider. That's good to know that you are using technology and actually impacting the outcomes for your patients. That is heartening to see where technology is, and me coming from an technology background as an information technology department, it's always nice to hear such feedback. Thank you so much. Uh, so with that feedback from Dr. Haider, I understand relating to the video that we saw that VDI is quite unique and different, and it is having the potential to enable better outcomes for anybody that is using that compared to a traditional a desktop or a managed desktop environment. But could you, Murali or Greg, could you just tell us what is VDI and how exactly it is really helping some of the things that Dr. Haider talked about, or the video that you guys showed? How is it even doing it? We have a desktop, you replace a desktop with some dumb terminal, and then you say that things are better, people are happy, things work fine. Can you just throw some light on that?
Yeah, sure, Rajiv. I'll take up this question. So, Rajiv, the general concept of VDI is take everything from locally and move to the central location. So the VDI is manageable, which reduces a lot of IT headaches. Perhaps the biggest benefit of the VDI is that everything is managed in one central location. So this centralized management is also an advantage in growing to scale. So there are two variants of VDI. One is application virtualization and other one is desktop virtualization. Application virtualization, commonly called as AppV. In application virtualization, the only application, the specific application is virtualized, but you still need the desktop to be perform other activities. In normal desktop virtualization, right? So the entire desktop is virtualized along with the desktop OS, and all that you want is you need just only a dumb terminal to access the virtual desktop. So to specifically answer your question on how the VDI improves the performance in a traditionally managed infrastructure, you will have a desktop with multiple moving parts, right? And all the process happening locally. It depends on the hardware capability as well. And the data transfer between the local sites and server also will impact the performance of the application. But while I'm speaking, you could say you think that the implementation or the solution is very simple, but it's not. The key challenge, how the solution provider implements the VDA solution by understanding the customer pain point. There are a lot of complexity under that. So overall, the benefits will bring good response to the application and great user experience. Greg, would you like to add a few more points on this challenging aspect?
Yeah, Murali, you make some great points in the benefits of VDI as an IT strategy. And I think it's an important strategy for all organizations, even outside of healthcare, education, manufacturing, right? The key point being is that you can go from a distributed deployment of many hundreds or thousands of individual desktops to one where all of the desktops are centralized, like you said, in a virtual environment, and they all use a common image. Right, so this impacts everything from your operational time in troubleshooting desktop issues. Right, it absolutely just erases troubleshooting desktop issues when you can just reboot it and get a brand new desktop. Right, and I think it also has a significant capital impact to organizations, moving away from the costly, $1,000, $1,500 desktops that can run your imaging that Dr. Haider uses in his profession, right? If you can put that in a virtual desktop that runs in a highly performant environment, it reduces that, total cost of ownership on a per desktop basis. VDI is not meant for everybody, though. There is a degree of complexity that's involved in all the moving parts, the architecture, the management. So, VDI is not without those complexity issues.
Got it. Okay. Great. Thanks, Greg, on that topic, or inputs on that. So I think it's time to go for a poll question. So can we have the poll questions? Audience, we would like to answer, like you to answer this question. I think you're able to see the poll on your screen. Appreciate your responses. And of course, organizers and panelists, please don't vote. So we'll give another 10-15 seconds for all of our participants and audiences to answer this. 10 more seconds, probably. All right. Hopefully everybody had a chance. Can we have the results of the poll? Got it. Okay. This is, I mean, I have been looking at some of these responses, but I'll reserve my comments. Murali, do you have any feedback on those comments? And
Yeah,
can I
definitely.
still have the poll responses come back on the screen while Murali talks, please, if you can? Great. Go ahead, Murali.
Yeah, Rajiv, it looks very interesting because when pandemic was just starting, I was a part of a webinar on the same topic, and I was seeing similar questions, and the results are different now. I believe the COVID pandemic has influenced the result. As we all know, the recent COVID pandemic has caused fluctuation in the market, and it's hard to maintain the business continuity. So that could be one of the main challenge for the business during the pandemic was to promise a secure workplace to the employees. So business owners had to come up with a plan with a business continuity to maintain the sustainability. I think the result is the reflection of the organization around the globe have already started using or thinking about the VDI for providing a secure workplace to their employee. So today, VDI solutions more flexible and organizations have started adopting it. I think that's what I can see from this result, Rajiv.
Yeah, definitely. Because if I look back at it, typically in my experience, I have been in the infrastructure field for over 2 decades right now. I have always looked at it, and typically the VDA adoption rate was less than 20%. But this is very surprisingly happy feedback that almost 60% of our 60-70% of the organizations, or at least in the poll panels today, are either having a solution or are trying to scale or evaluating a new solution, and that was less than 20-30%. So definitely pandemic is one of the agents for digital transformation, no questioning about
Yeah.
it. Great. So so we talked about VDI, we talked about Dr. Haider saying that technology he's embracing technology. You talked about how it can make an impact for organizations, and Greg's point about security and various things. But I am still startled by the fact virtualization as a technology has been there for more than 2 decades. If you take organizations, every organization for that matter, irrespective of size, they have a server virtualization technology that has been, like, if you ask anybody, are you using a server virtualization technology? 99% of them have some sort of a server virtualization technology. But that's not the case with VDI. Even here, we have a lot more people who don't have a strategy for VDI or don't want VDI. Now, this makes me ask a question. Is VDI a myth or a reality, or is VDI only for those organizations that have enough capital funding that they want to try and explore a technology solution that they don't have to worry if it doesn't work, right? Or is it a reality? That's still lingering in my mind. But I know Dr. Haider talked about VDI in his organization. So before you guys can answer, Dr. Haider, we are coming back to you again. You talked about your mindset about whether should I embrace technology, in this case VDI. Is it going to really create more problems to me? Can you just walk us through in detail what were some of your experience, life before VDI, life after VDI, and how has it transitioned or transformed your life at Bronx Care Hospital, if you may, Dr. Haider?
So, well, Rajiv, as you know that being a physician in New York City Hospital is a very tough task. We have to see a lot of patients. We have to see patients on different floors. So time is of the essence. Every second, every minute we waste takes critical time away from patient care. COVID-19 has just made this matter even more worse. I think when VDI, it has been a major boon for us. It totally changed the way we interact with the system. Like the video you showed earlier, I was able to relate to it. Dealing with the computer issue was a nightmare. I used to be calling the IT desk. Sometimes I used to wait for 5 minutes. Then the IT person had to come, fix the computer. That further increased the time. And during the same time, my patient was also getting frustrated because we can't start the patient session because of this delay. With the introduction of the VDI, the IT help desk has improved this significantly. I don't have to worry about any computer issue. In the past 3 years, I don't remember any delays in addressing of any of my issues which I came across during my healthcare practice. I believe the ability like to allow rapid access to desktops from various clinical area is a foundational need for any healthcare organization. Login time has like plagued utilization since healthcare organizations began to implement EHR, EMR. I used to spend like large amount of time just logging in. Sometimes it used to take 10 minutes for all the application to open up between each patient sessions. And it was really hampering my patient interaction. And my patient satisfaction rate was also low. Since GAFs deployed like zDesk in 2018, now I have more chance to interact with the patient rather with the computer. So it's definitely increased my effectiveness. And the other thing is that it follows me. I don't have to close my desktop and restart everything again. With the VDI, I can just open everything and everything will be there already. So it's like a following computer kind of thing for me. Because of this, I have like additional time for my patient care, especially in the critical care settings. So in my experience, I think GAFs like zDesk has improved patient care significantly. And by implementing visualization, my healthcare organization has given the ability to be more cost as well as healthcare point of wise effective. And I can give patients better quality of care because now I have more time to spend with them. And I think it's easy for the IT administrators as well because they have more control over the infrastructure and they're able to help us in a much rapid and way as compared to before. So I believe the VDI has revolutionized our healthcare system, and it has not only benefited the physician, but I believe it has benefited the patients as well.
Great, great. That's really awesome to hear that from you, Dr. Haider. Thank you so much. And again, we really thank you. You've been fighting for us in this pandemic, and you are the real hero. And we all, on behalf of the audience and the panelists, we really thank you for everything that you do in protecting the health of the human race. And hats off to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajiv.
All right. Okay. So Murli and Greg, you know, I still cannot believe. So I'm hearing all great things about VDI and how this has changed, and some of the points that Dr. Haider talked about. Somebody wouldn't say no to it, and they would just accept it, especially in this pandemic world. So there must be something, right, for the low adoption rate. Do you want to share any thoughts around why is the adoption rate of VDI very low compared to the benefits that it has brought? Any thoughts there, Murli or Greg?
Yeah. So Rajiv, before that, I would like to go for the another poll, and I think we will get the answer from that, Rajiv.
Okay. So can we have the poll, please? All right. So what are the typical challenges faced with your current VDA implementation, or when you are exploring your VDA solutions, what have been some of the inhibiting factors that kind of prevented you from making a decision? So we have 4 choices. Obviously, high capital cost, the user experience issue being one of the prime factor, complex implementation and management, and the ability of a solution to proactively identify problem and resolve the issues. So here are the 4 options. We will wait for another 10-15 seconds for everybody to answer, and then we'll continue with the webinar. 10 more seconds. All right. Can we have the results, please? Okay. Wow. Okay. So predominantly, I am seeing 40% are talking about capital cost, and the remaining 40 are talking about complex implementation and management. It looks like that's going to be the white elephant in the room for the technology department. 82% of the audiences feel that way, which is probably, I now understand why, Murli, you asked that question. With that said, we are talking about VDI. We now know what is two of the major reasons why it is not getting adopted. I know zDesk from Gaps Technologies is disrupting the VDI environment or the VDI market. Can you, Greg and Murli, talk about how does zDesk attacks these problems that most organizations face, and how do you differentiate and disrupt the VDI market, please?
Yeah.
I think
Go ahead.
sure. I think what we saw from the poll is it's an industry perception that's been around for decades, right, of what VDI means to an organization. High capital cost, very complex to manage, right? And so this has been a mindset in the industry for the past 15, 20 years. While VDI has improved over time with new features and new functionality, better, faster, there's really been no significant overhaul in the VDI architecture as a whole, like I said, in the last 10, 15 years. So I think the perceptions that we see here are from people that are still living in that legacy approach. And I think as we go through the zDesk conversation in the next few slides, we'll see why that perception is out there.
That's it. So can we have the zDesk slides, please? So while we bring up the slide, go ahead, Greg. Talk about what zDesk is, how it is different, and what are some of the uniqueness of your offering.
Certainly. So zDesk is significantly different than what we've seen out in industry for a VDI platform. zDesk leverages a platform that's referred to as a zero-layer architecture. Every bit and piece of the VDI architecture is included in every single install and every single license. So when you install the platform, it includes the hypervisor, it includes your orchestration layer, it includes software-defined storage. And when I say software-defined storage, I'm not just limited to maybe hyper-converged storage, but also the ability to leverage server memory as a primary storage tier. All right, so that in concert with the ability to configure software-defined networking and have a built-in gateway and an overall management UI that sits on top of this, so you have this single pane of glass view. That's where we really start to differentiate ourselves from that traditional approach to VDI. In your typical architecture, if we can move on to the next slide. In your typical or traditional VDI architectures, you've got several components, right? And these components still exist within the zDesk platform, but here in these traditional approaches to VDI, and these are reference architectures from some competing vendors. All of these are different components, right? They're different implementations. They're different points of management. You need a back-end database, and not just one database, but one that's replicated. You need redundant gateways and security servers, and you have a separate provisioning system that handles the entire provisioning of your desktops from a golden image or a template. And this exists across vendors, right? So when you take these and you best practice over the past 20 years has always said you take these management pieces and you put them on dedicated hardware. Right? You want to separate that management workload from your resource workload. Well, that whole concept now goes away, right? With a single layer architecture where every piece of the VDI environment is included in every single install from the very first host. You no longer have that need to have a separate management hardware infrastructure. So immediately you begin to see the capital expense reduce, right? Or move those workload hosts into what we call a resource host and build out more VDIs. So when I want to touch on one of the things that I saw in the poll where people were struggling, and that's in scale. Well, scale traditionally means I need to add 1,000 new users. How do I scale? Well, traditionally that's been, how do I scale my provisioning system? How do I scale my central management? How do I scale my gateway, right? Because those have always been separate systems as part of the VDI architecture. With a consolidated system, everything boiled down into that single piece of software like zDesk, scale becomes easy. I need to add 1,000 more users. Well, each of my servers can handle 100 users. Well, then I need 10 servers, because each one of those 10 servers has all the management components that you need to run the environment, from provisioning to the ability to act as a gateway to the orchestration, software-defined storage, all those components that have traditionally been a different management interface, a different point of contact for your IT administrators, is now boiled down into a single piece of software under a single pane of glass management.
Gotcha. Okay.
So when we think about what does it replace, right? When we look at these architectures, if we can move on to the next slide, when we look at this traditional architecture and compare it to what I'm talking about from a zDesk perspective, where everything is included in that single installation, what does this impact, right? Well, we can see here all the different vendors that play in all the different areas of a VDI architecture, from profile management and the hypervisors and hyperconverged storage and brokering and gateway functionalities. When we look at across the environment and we look at all the different vendors that play in the VDI arena, that's a significant reduction in not only the cost from a licensing perspective, right? Everybody has a different license as a piece of this entire puzzle, but think about calling for assistance, right? If I've got a perception that I've got a user profile issue, then I'm contacting the vendor for the user profile issue, who then puts it off on the vendor who does the hypervisor, right? So with a single platform, single piece of software, you have a single point of contact. You have one throat to choke, right? For that. So that's other than the reduction in licensing costs, that's just another what we would refer to as a soft benefit of moving to a single architecture, right, under a single piece of software.
So Greg, just a quick question. So all of these different modules that I'm seeing in the slide, are you saying that zDesk replaces that into a single license or a single software?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So each host has a single install, and as part of that install, all these pieces of software, all these features and functionality are built into that single piece of software. So if I want to use a gateway functionality, for example, for remote VDI access, I simply just turn it on. If I want to build out hyperconverged storage, I click on the storage button and I say I want to create hyperconverged storage. So everything's there. You don't have to leverage it all. You can, but you don't have to. Right? It's all part of the overall architecture.
So that basically reduces the cost aspects of it, less modules or less hardware to bring down the cost. I understand that. Okay.
Correct.
All right. There was also something about simplification or the complexity. I think the need of the hour is simplified management and operational management. Looks like I understood it. It's a white elephant sitting in the room. So how do we address that with zDesk? How do you manage that with the simplification process?
Yeah, that's one of our key differentiators, right? Is that overall management simplification. So we take and if we go on to the next slide, we'll see some of that. Excuse me. We take that legacy architecture that I talked about, where we have a provisioning system and we have a security server and we have gateway servers and we have user profile management, and those are all different systems and they all are built to interact with each other. We take all that and we put it into a single pane of glass. So all that management is at your fingertips through that single interface, one. Secondly, the system makes decisions for you, right? The system makes the best decisions for you, kind of removing the human factor from making those mistakes, right? So when we build out hyperconverged storage, for example, it's 2 clicks, right? It's not, you don't go through a lengthy sizing exercise and let's consider deduplication. We wanted to take the complexity out of it, to remove the human error condition, and provide you really with just a point and click architecture that would allow your IT generalists, right, to run the system, not your expensive specialists who have had years of back-end training in a particular platform and they're certified and have all the certifications that go along with it. Here we're targeting, like I said, the IT generalist to run your VDI infrastructure.
Got it. Okay. Do we have anything specific to talk on zDesk? Murali, do you want to add anything around our USP around the zDesk and how you are doing it? And more importantly, I want you to talk about for a couple of minutes around zDesk being AI ready. So we are in the era of artificial intelligence, robots, and automation and stuff like that. Is zDesk AI ready, and can it integrate with other AI ops tools and various other tools that are in the market? So over to you, Murali.
So Rajiv, one of the old response, right? We got it. The end user experience where many people voted for, right? So we have seen this challenge in even in our VDI as well, right? Where the end user experience is not good, but we have overcome that by implementing our AI and ML techniques. So the proactive problem solving will be addressed by integrating our GAP's flagship product called ZIF, that is a zero incident framework. So in VDI, many challenges can be addressed using AI and ML techniques. We have been talking to our customers and prospects. Typically, the challenges they have is the resource that allocated to a VM are not being utilized effectively. For example, in a persistent desktop, if we assign 4x8 or 4x16, right? So if at all the user is not using that resources, right, but still that resource is allocated to the VMs. But the question comes around, right, how we can dynamically increase or decrease the VM resource based on the usage, because that seems to be a big challenge. And because the other user may need a resource, but that time we will not be able to provide that. So our AI-driven self-healed VDA actually help in addressing this issue. So we are working on that actually. The other challenges we can address using AI are proactively we can track the host and the VM utilization, and using our predictive analytic feature, we can identify the issue before it occurs. And automation is a part of our platform, which helps in restarting any service of failure without human intervention. And proactive monitoring of the VDI infrastructure, we use synthetic monitoring to monitor all the URLs and other components which are used to build the VDI environment, right? So we all monitor all this component to make sure that our environment is stable and we can able to provide a better user experience. So that's how Rajiv, using our AM and ML techniques, using our GAPS product, we monitor our zDesk environment and bring the stability.
Okay, so I also see the slide about managed services offering. So does zDesk, is it a software only product that the customer needs to buy, or what is zDesk? How do organization, if they want to go ahead and resolve some of the issues with traditional VDI, how do they actually work with you?
Right. So, Rajiv, you would have heard or you would have seen that some of the VDI solution provider, they will stop by giving the license, right? Then they need to onboard some other vendors to take care of the environment and do the support process, all these things, right? But GAV's offering, right, it will start right from the assessment. When when the prospect is converted to a customer, we'll start doing the assessment and we'll do consulting with them and we'll do a proper designing, as I talked about in the previous section, right, where if you are not implementing the VDI solution properly, definitely we will end up in a problem. So we want to make sure our customer also to be succeed. So we will take care of right from assessment, onboarding till the support. That will all cover under our VDI solution. It's a complete package, and it will enable the user to pay the OPEX model pricing, Rajiv.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Very good. I think we have heard about how you are differentiating and how it is, but it's always, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. We would love to actually see your tool and your product. So can Greg do a quick demo of the product for our audience, please?
Yeah, I'd love to, Rajiv. Thank you.
And in the meantime, for all the audiences, please keep your questions coming to our organism panels, and we would review those questions and try to answer them in the next 15 minutes. So please post your questions in your window, and we would pick and answer as much as we can.
Rajiv, can you confirm that you can see my screen okay?
Yes, sir.
So this is the platform that drives zDesk. This is the all-inclusive UI that we've been talking about, right? The single pane of glass. And I'm just going to go over some of the key features at a high level. You know, first and foremost, I think as we navigate around the UI, you can see how the UI changes. And really, the strategy for this is to take and show you the relationship of your resources that are in use. So for example, hovering over this admissions VDI pool here, I can see that all of my desktops in the admissions pool leverage local RAM as their storage platform. So all of the VDI pools that I have configured for today are all leveraging in-memory technology to accelerate the desktop and provide that user with the best end user experience they can have.
And this is the management console, right?
Absolutely. Yep. This is the only console, right? This is where you do everything. You know, of course, there's a back end work that needs to be set up to get everything kind of operating together. You're going to set up a domain integration, your profiles, your golden images, which we refer to as templates. In the back end, but once you've done that, everything is point and click. So, you know, if I wanted to create a new desktop pool, for example, I click on the resource button and I click desktop pool. If I wanted to include a new host to the cluster, where that host will inherit all of the configuration from the rest of the cluster, I can simply click on the host button, and I just need a remote IP address and username and password, and I can pull in a new host. So as you can see, it's very just point and click driven. You know, I talked a little bit about the storage setup, hyperconverged, and how easy it can be. So if I just click on the storage button, you'll see here hyperconverged storage is already enabled. But if it wasn't, click on it and ask me one question: what % of the local capacity of the disk do you want to use for hyperconverged storage? I select, you know, 75% or whatever I want to use and click go. And in about 60 seconds, I have my hyperconverged storage platform created, which is represented here as HF shared. So just a quick tutorial of the user interface. You know, as we scale obviously this interface can become very busy. I'm looking at a 3-host cluster right now through zDesk 13, 15, and 16. But as we scale these clusters out to 18 to 25 members, it becomes critically important to be able to draw attention to those pieces of your environment that are experiencing issues, right? None of your IT staff is concerned with the 95% of your operations that are running smoothly. They're only concerned with the ones that are experiencing issues. So, for example, if I wanted to see where is all my memory being spent in the environment, right? We see that zDesk 13, now that I've applied the filter, is utilizing the most memory. So we see here all of the performance metrics associated with that host, even over time, right? From a day to real time, and even out to a week and 30 days, right? It's all available to you here in this single pane of glass management. And this is
can
all
I
geared.
export this data into another tool to do more inferences using AI and other things?
Absolutely. We've got a pretty exhaustive REST API that you can plug into, for example, Ziff, to pull all of the metrics you can need to identify users that are logged in, trends, your resource utilization, all that information.
Got you. Thank you.
And of course, all this is geared towards the systems administrator, right? The administrator running the system. So, what does it look like from an end user perspective, right? The people who are actually leveraging the system. Let's take a quick look there. Here I've got a zDesk Access client. So VDI platform, everybody's operating off of thin clients. So I'm going to launch our client access. You'll see how the interaction works. So here my client is going to authenticate with the system. Of course, live demos never go awry. So here we go. Now that I'm logged into the system, I have a listing. You'll see some of these names are familiar from the UI I just showed you. Registration.
I want to maximize the screen. It's very small. Yeah. Okay.
Not the text in the middle, but here I'm just going to click on connect. And in the background, of course, it's authenticating me. It's attaching my user profile storage and getting my access ready. So here I'm sitting in Dallas, Texas, and I'm already connected at my desktop in New Jersey. So this is my desktop that's running in RAM. So I'll bring up my file explorer to kind of give you a lay of the land. When I say in memory, I mean everything on your C drive, operating system applications are all in memory, right? But we allow you a persistent feel for that desktop using our user profile disk. So our user profile disk is a secondary disk. We call it a user volume that is slipstreamed into that VDI session that redirects everything that you do, that user does in the environment. So you'll recognize these as normal components of your entire Windows profile, right? But we redirect that entire thing to a persistent disk that sits in the data center. In this case, it sits on our hyperconverged storage. So any changes you make to this environment, be it browser favorites, desktop icon, that sort of thing, everything stays, right? Everything in my documents, downloads, pictures, that entire user interaction with the machine persists past reboot. So that's what allows Dr. Hyder to be able to log in, open up his EMR, his EHR, work on a patient entry, and then move on to the next patient, logs back into this, still has the EMR EHR system open, logs in another patient, and can start to add the telemetry data that's critical to servicing their customers.
And this is all done without needing a persistent desktop for Dr. Hyder, correct?
That's correct.
So you have a non-persistent, but you get the persistence using the drive volume.
That's correct, the user volume.
That's quite interesting. Okay, good. All right, so we are 10 minutes into our webinar. We have 10 more minutes. Maybe we should take some questions from our audiences to see if they have any questions that we can answer. Okay, so we have a question about high availability. How does zDesk handle high availability? Is it part of your architecture? Greg or anybody?
Sure. So the platform is built off of a distributed architecture. So there are multiple hosts within an environment that can answer database calls. So we talked earlier about the need for a backend database. The zDesk platform is built such that it's a distributed architecture, and any one host in the cluster can lead that witness or that source of truth for the database. I think that's first and foremost. Secondly, when we talk about high availability, often storage comes into play. So with the hyperconverged storage platform that's built into zDesk, you can lose a host without any adverse effect on the overall availability of the storage. All right, storage will be in a degraded mode while that host has failed. Bring that host back up, it rejoins the cluster, rebuilds the deltas that it missed while it was down, and you're back in operations. I hope that addresses your question.
Okay, so we have another question. That question goes around DR and backup with zDesk. So how do we handle DR and the backup within the zDesk environment?
Sure, and the answer here is also twofold. First, I'll tackle the backup, right, of the system. So we include a storage role called data protection, and it's you identify a storage pool, build it out in your UI, and you can actually select cloud storage, CIFS, SMB, NFS, any storage that's available to the cluster, and label it as data protection. From that point forward, you can go to any object within the environment and tag it for data protection, and we'll actually replicate that based upon a schedule of daily, weekly, or monthly. And I think from the DR perspective, what we've built into the architecture is the ability to mirror desktop pools from one site to another. Of course, underlying storage for that needs to support replication, but really the feature is that we can mirror a configuration from one site to another and actually fail over that entire site, often within minutes.
Got you. Okay, so there is another interesting question from the audience where they're talking about, I think, going back to the simplicity or complexity aspect of it, as well as the cost aspect of it. Probably I'll try to answer that question myself, even though I'm the moderator, but I've been involved in some of these myself. So the cost per user, what is the cost per user? And what is the expected setup time frame for the internal support group? So taking cue from Bronx Care, Dr. Haider's facility where zDesk was implemented, Murli, correct me if I'm wrong, we were able to get the zDesk setup up and running in less than 4 weeks time for all the 3,000 concurrent user base. That includes storage, hardware, and the thin clients, everything associated with it. Am I right, Murli?
That's right, Rajiv. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and typically, Murli, what do you think would be the timeline for the internal support groups to catch up and support the solution by themselves if they want to?
Yeah. So Rajiv, I mean, as Greg said, no, this solution is completely is very simple actually. I think we don't need any expert to learn and do the support, and all. It's not required. So anybody who knows the basic knowledge of the IT operation with 1 or 2 weeks of training max, right? They can straight away onboard to the job and they can start supporting. And the management console, whatever we built, right, as part of this platform, is very intuitive, and people can go to the management console and they can onboard users, they can create templates, they can create pools. So all these things is made very simple. So it will not take much time, Rajiv, as I said.
Yeah. So adding to that point from the audience, the thing is, zDesk is provided as a managed service. So when you buy zDesk on a monthly subscription model, everything comes into it in terms of the hardware associated to run the environment, the associated licenses, except for the applications or the operating system, all the associated licenses, but more importantly, the design, implementation, and ongoing support of the environment is also included. Because one of the things that we wanted was, we didn't want the tier 3 resources within your organization to spend the time, even if it is minimal, to keep this up and running. And that's why we want to do as a service model. So with the as a service model, the only expected role for the internal support group or the help desk is to understand how to report the problem, if any, and go through the tools. And for the tier 3 team to manage their templates. So if you have a Windows 10 template, what kind of software you need to install, what kind of cleanups that you need to do to keep it light, and deployment of new software within the template would be those specific. And in terms of the cost per user, again, we don't have a specific answer to this question, but our cost can start as low as $20 per user per month for an all-inclusive hardware license and support. But again, the devil is in the detail. You can it all depends upon the requirements, the concurrent nature in which you need to do, and the load that you are expecting. But we are very flexible as a boutique organization. We want to deploy our solution to the needs for the customer and not go and just sell the software at a dollar and walk away. So that's the answer to that question. In the interest of time, maybe we can take one last question. And okay, so this question is around our DaaS model, desktop as a service. So with desktop as a service, assuming that whoever has asked the question has assumed that the desktop as a service, our solution will be hosted outside their data center. And their question is, with the desktop virtualization or the zDesk being outside the data center, their core applications is within the data center. How does this affect performance? And what is our recommendation there for a DaaS model with an on-prem data center, Murli or Greg? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I will take this, Rajiv. So typically, Rajiv, we recommend the application environment and the VDI environment to be present on the same network. But in the cloud era, we should expect this. We don't see any challenge connecting between the application environment and the VDI environment, and we can provide a good experience. That will not be a problem. We just need to establish the connectivity. We should make sure that the authentication is successful between these two environments, and rest and all will be taken care of with the application. Only thing that we should manage the number of data transferring between these two environments. That part alone we need to take care of, Rajiv.
Okay, all right. So the last question, we have 1 minute. The last question for this session is the VDI terminal restricted to a specific hardware brand? A very, very good question. Thank you for asking that. One of the theses behind when we developed zDesk is we did not want it to be vendor specific. So this can even run on a Raspberry Pi, and it can run on any device that is HTML5 compatible, as well as thin clients and zero clients. We have agents or clients that we can customize for any hardware model, and we are totally hardware agnostic, both at the host level as well as at the client level. With that, we are coming to the top of the hour. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure talking to you, and hope we were able to showcase our VDI capabilities. And to the panelists, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time. And before I leave, you can reach out to us for more questions where we can specifically answer, and we'd be more than glad to assist you. Once again, Thank you, everybody. And I hope you have enjoy the rest of the day and have a good week. Until we meet next time, thank you from GAPS Technologies and the team here. Thank you and bye.
Thank you, everybody.
You guys, bye bye. Have a nice
Thank you,
day.
everybody. Thank you all. Have a nice day.